Join hosts Mary Carter and Stephen Ross for our first in-person conversation about beating the competition's pricing strategy. Discover why 85% of HVAC contractors use best, better, good, and exactly how to outsell them by talking budget early, presenting the right number of options, and making every price point sound like the best choice. Whether you're struggling with closing or just want to sell more confidently, this episode shows you how small changes in your sales process can lead to massive revenue growth. Let's get started.
Welcome back to HVAC Full Blast. I'm Mary Carter.
I'm Stephen Ross.
And we're in the same room.
We are.
And we don't know what to do with our hands.
We don't know what to do with our hands. We don't even know whether to look at each other or look at the camera. So we're figuring out podcasting with video live right now.
It's an experience. And also, there's no teleprompter, but I really do want to say, you stay classy, San Diego. This is just bringing out all the Ron Burgundy in me. So if I go there, that's what's happening.
Hey, we'll just roll with it. We'll roll with it.
Well, it's good to see you in person.
Good to see you. I know we're never in person, so this is fun.
No, we're between the two of us. We're always somewhere doing something, training somebody, having a conversation, and even today we've been making some connections down here in Tyler, Texas. So it's been fun.
It has been fun.
Some might say it's been the best.
Can I share my all-time, because you have a fan club. I don't know if you know that you have a fan club. But every time I talk to somebody, they're like, you know who's awesome is Mary. And so I want to share with your fan club via the podcast, my all-time favorite text message from Mary. Do you know what it is?
I am thinking of a few. I think I know one.
All right. So you were a minute or two late when we were logging on to talk about some stuff. And I was like, hey, are you coming? And you responded with, I'm making money.
Yeah, that sounds like you.
I love it. I love it. Well, we're in sales. This is a sales podcast. And
although, I like to keep myself to my calendar, and when meetings start and be on time, sometimes you're out there making money and you just can't go from one to the next. So
absolutely. I had a sales team that I was managing. There were about 15 of us. And we just had to come up with a rule that if we're on the phone with each other, but a customer calls and you have the chance to make money, you don't explain. You don't say, hey, I got to go. This is a customer. You go, stop, bye, and just hang up and go make money.
Oh,
because we're in sales. So other salespeople at the very least should understand, got to go, bye. And that's it. And we'll pick up the conversation later.
Yeah, I love that.
So,
well, today's episode is pro tips on how to go make money. So
making money.
I love that. That's the voice, because that's totally the voice.
That was in my head. That's what, as I'm reading the text, I could just hear you kind of. Yeah.
Well,
nice.
So I guess perfect segue, because we're talking today about making money.
Well, this is all about making money today.
Right. And the choices, right, that come with selling, and especially in our industry, we always hear about the choices that you can offer. And usually it's the same three choices, and they're usually called the same thing. And I'm referring to, of course, best, better, good.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is interesting. So we were at a conference a couple weeks ago, and to fill everybody in the audience in, we just did a quick question at the beginning. How many people in the room have heard of best, better, good? And so it's a room full of contractors. Every hand goes up. We said, how many people in the room use a version? Maybe you've customized it, maybe it's your own, but you're using a version of best, better, good. And I would say 85 to 90% of the hands went up.
Mm-hmm.
And then the third question was, if we were to poll all of your competitors, what do you think the statistics are? Are your competitors also all using best, better, good? And I think everybody had to stop and think about that for a second and go, yeah, probably. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of, I think, when we tackle this challenge, what we're going to do today, I think, is dissect it, break it down, look at the psychology. And the reason I had to do this early on in my career is that's who I was competing against. So my sales coach was framing it kind of like college football. If you know what the defense is playing, then on offense, you know what plays to call, right? And so if your competitors are all doing best, better, good, well, let's come up with a pricing strategy to go kick their butts. So that got me excited about kicking the butt of best, better, good.
Yeah, well, they say defense wins championships.
There you go.
I'm a big fan of the strategy. And I can tell you, even just from my own secret shopping, everyone is doing best, better, good. So if you don't know what your competitors are doing, I would lean pretty favorably towards the fact that they're probably doing that. I have seen now maybe the fourth option come out.
Yeah.
And it depends on, whether that gets a polished name or maybe a not so favorable name, depending on what the strategy of the rep is. And I actually one time put a rep on the spot in my house and said, why 4 options? And he said, because the human brain sees everything in 2 halves, and I'm trying to get you to see 2 halves. And I was like, wow, that is really dense. I wasn't going to go there, but that's where he went. So anyway, so that just brings us to what's right. And or how did we get here? Why are we doing this?
Well, if you think about evolution of the heating and air industry, I mean, for a long time, just everybody made single stage units. And so there was very little differentiation between how the units worked. And so really the only differentiator was price. And so if you were a manufacturer and you wanted to make a little bit better unit, it still essentially worked the same, but now your unit's more expensive. And you can say, well, look, we're using higher quality materials and higher quality components and so on. But it's hard for the homeowner to see that difference. And so I think that's really what drove the innovation in our industry to come out with 2-stage and variable. And I mean, even back in the day, the XL19i had 2 compressors in it because we were looking for an innovative way to deliver more comfort, but also we're trying to differentiate our product lineup from our competitors' product lineups. And so that's really where, if you think about where Best, Better, Good came from, I mean, it's solidly rooted in the 80s. Much like my sweater today.
No.
So,
people, that's in. You're in.
I mean, I think it's back.
Yeah,
I think it's back.
It's the haps. Is that right? I don't know. I'm not part of this vocabulary, but
yeah. Well, here's I think the initial challenge, if we were to kind of break down Best, Better, Good, and let's look at the psychology. One challenge is, and I've had questions where contractors will ask me, well, what do you do? Do you go best, better, good, meaning you start with your most expensive, or do you go good, better, best, and you kind of work your way up? And, statistically, when you're polling consumers in terms of, there's lots of research that goes into this. Does it make a difference in consumer buying behavior? Not really. Now, the people who say, no, you start with your best first is because you're throwing out your most expensive option, you're price conditioning that consumer, so that when they see the lesser expensive options, they're like, thank goodness I don't have to spend that top dollar. But there's some flaws in that. And so let's talk about that for a second, because I think the first issue is the terminology, best, better, good.
Right.
And I've seen all sorts of variations of this where you have like platinum, gold, silver, bronze, if you were trying to add a 4th option in there, or blue, green, yellow, orange, or maybe they even call it value tier at the bottom for that 4th option. The problem a lot of times is just the presentation. So if I'm in your living room and I'm sitting there talking to you about all the different options, when I start with the best, I make it sound amazing. I mean, this thing cooks and it cleans, and Mary, would you like this to put your kids to bed for you at night? And you're like, yeah, that'd be great.
Totally.
So then when we go to the next one down, we're like, well, look, it cooks and it cleans. It'll do the dishes, but it is not putting the kids to bed for you. And then by the time we get to our value tier, we're like, well, look, it doesn't suck. And the challenge for that is, if you look at what most people can afford, what percentages of homeowners buy the best, what percentages buy the middle tier. By the time we get down to the good, we're almost disparaging it. Well, it's kind of just like what you got, except your old one was 13 SEER and this one's 14 SEER, and and it's not very exciting or motivating or thrilling for that customer to go, yes, I want a brand new 14 SEER, even though the quality might be great. We're kind of disparaging it.
Yeah, it feels like the Charlie Brown option.
Yeah.
I guess I get to buy this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes the way it comes across too is, well, Mary, for broke people like you who can't afford the $20,000 system, we have something over here.
Right.
So that's not a great sales pitch if you started out that way. So what you see is, for contractors that sell that way, they say, well, we sell a lot of high-end units. And that's true. But the reason they sell so many high-end units as a percentage is that they're losing all of the low-end units because we're not presenting them well. So that's one issue. I think the other issue is, while the idea of price conditioning is a good one, you're doing it so close. You're saying, hey, here's our $25,000 option. And by the time you work your way down to the $10,000 option, the sticker shock hasn't worn off.
Right.
So, 5 minutes later, there's still sticker shock. And so the concept of price conditioning is great. The timing with best, better, good, not so great.
Right. And every scenario I can work through in my head, I end up going with good because that's probably what I can afford, and I feel bad about it. Like,
Yeah.
I lost out on features, or in my case, my husband probably said, we don't need all those features, and then we'll go see one out in the wild and be like, wow, I wish we could have had that one. Like,
Yeah.
You don't feel good about it.
And I think that's a shame because when you look at other statistics that correlate with this, where do your referrals come from? Well, your referrals come from people who are excited about what they bought. And so if you get down to the good and they're like, well, I'm not that excited about it, your likelihood of getting a referral from that customer, even though maybe the salesperson did a great job and the installers did a great job and the customer service team did a great job, if they're not excited about the unit they bought, you're not getting a referral.
Right. Yeah, it's just sort of sliding one in there for the sake of doing it, and then maybe they go with you, or maybe then they really start shopping because now you've kind of opened up their world to what is best, but you shocked them so much with sticker and that conversation. So to your point earlier of, hey, I sell a lot of high-end systems, but maybe I'm losing a lot of good customers. There could be some of that too, right? Just all of a sudden the floodgate opens for, what else am I missing?
Yeah. And I would say, if you think about the dealers that are listening to our podcast, tend to sell higher end equipment, they tend to sell better equipment. And so one of our frequent thorn in our sides is the chuck in a truck who is underpricing his equipment and doing a poor job. But what does he do well? Well, he comes in, he's like, man, I got a 14 SEER unit and it's great, because that's all he knows how to put in.
Right.
He doesn't know how to do variable and communicating zoning and all that kind of stuff. So he is super excited about the 14 SEER because he can't screw that up. So if I'm not that excited about the 14 SEER, I'm like, well, it doesn't suck. And then the next guy comes in, he goes, I got a 14 SEER unit. It's awesome. The homeowner's like, wow, I can afford this and it's awesome.
Yeah.
So I think that's, we're vulnerable to the chuck in a truck, not just because he's cheaper, but because he talks up the 14 SEER where we talk down the 14 SEER sometimes.
And yeah, really, really interesting. All right. So that's sort of the perspective of leading with best. What about the other end of the spectrum where now I lead with good?
Yeah. And I think, again, I don't know that it necessarily matters. We'll talk about this maybe in a couple minutes, but the price conditioning good idea. We just need to separate out sticker shock from proposal, because when they happen simultaneously, it doesn't matter whether you're going best, better, good, or good, better, best. That sticker shock is right there.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge more there. I think the other thing then with terminology, if I could say, if there's one thing we could change, is let's change the terminology, because best, better, good, value. I mean, how excited is somebody to buy value? Not excited at all. I think we changed our terminology to more reflect maybe what car manufacturers do. That change alone would be good. So if all we did was say, if I'm a car manufacturer and I got my big SUV, is this the best? Well, yeah, it's the best. But my midsize SUV, what am I going to say about that? Well, I'm going to say it's the best. You know what the car manufacturers say?
I have a feeling that it's best in class.
Best in class,
Best in class.
right? So that terminology, right? So my big SUV, best in class, my midsize SUV, best in class, my basic, hybrid crossover, best in class. So I think for a dealer, if we're selling heating and air, one of the things we want to say is, hey, in this price range, here's your best option. In this price range, here's your best option. But if we could do essentially the same thing, which is instead of best, better, good, best, 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 it's just best in this price range, or best in this category. If you wanted to say single stage, multi-stage, variable, here's the best option in this category. Just the change in terminology, I think, will make homeowners feel a little bit better about whatever they pick.
No, that makes a lot of sense to me. Definitely. So how do homeowners pick? I mean, how do people
Great question. Well, again, that question of, is it best, better, good, or good, better, best? I mean, I think if you think about the last time you walked into a big box store to buy a TV.
Yeah.
And there's usually this wall of TVs, and you got the little 19-inch TVs on the far left side, and you got the $10,000 home theater systems on the right side.
Yep.
You know, if we just look at consumer behavior, where do people go? Do they go best, better, good? Meaning they start at the $10,000 TVs and work their way all the way down to the 19-inch TVs? Or do they go look at the 19-inch TVs and work their way up to the $10,000 TVs? When was the last time you bought a TV, Mary Beth?
I think we bought our last TV maybe 3 years ago.
Okay.
Not that long. We redid a space in the house. It warranted a new TV.
All right. And so how did you shop?
Well, we knew we wanted a 70-inch. I think that's
Okay.
what we went with. So we knew we wanted 70-inch. And it was funny because I remember walking in and I think the biggest TV they had at the time was 100-inch. And I just
Wow.
thought, like, what wall in America is supporting this? But
Yeah.
they're there. But so we knew the size TV that we wanted, but that was really our starting point. Was like, this is the space it'll fit. This is what it'll look good on the wall.
Yep.
So we walked in and went from there. And there were certainly, even knowing that that's the size that we wanted, there were plenty of options and ranges for just a 70-inch TV. Yeah.
And I think the way most people shop is that they're going to do research, and research could mean a couple different things. It could mean I got online, I looked up some things. Maybe these days I'm using artificial intelligence, like I'm plugging it into my LLM to say, hey, what should I look at when I'm buying a TV? Maybe it's I just asked my friends. So I'm like, hey, Mary, I came to your house. We watched the Masters at your house, and on that 70-inch TV, I could see the blades of grass. Like, do you mind me asking, what did you spend on that? So if you say, I spent $2,500, and then I asked my buddy Joe, like, what did you spend on your TV? We watched the Super Bowl at your house, and Joe's like, yeah, I spent about $1,500. Well, now I've got a budget in mind, $1,500 to $2,500.
Right.
Or I looked online and came up with a budget. So back to the big box store, what do most people do? Well, most people don't go to the cheapest, and most people don't go to the most expensive. They already have a budget where they're comfortable, and they just walk to the wall to find their budget.
Yeah.
Once they found their budget, then they start shopping. But they don't look at all the TVs out there and then start shopping. They've already got that budget in mind.
Yeah, and the big boxes definitely figure it out, right? Because they make the price real easy to see. Like it's TV and then big bold letters price. So you're right. We were totally conditioned to go to the section that we knew was going to be solving the need, and now the want was keep it in the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's crucial, is just understanding how people make decisions and how people buy. You know, people are going to have a budget in mind first, then they're going to start shopping. So we need to adjust our sales process a lot of times to incorporate that.
Right.
You know, I think the old school way of selling was you walk up to the door and you knock, and you step back 2 feet, and the homeowner opens the door, and you turn and look at your truck and you say, am I parked okay? And you parked somewhere where they could see the logo on the truck, and you got your name badge right here. And so the whole time we're doing this process, the homeowner's thinking, what's it going to cost? What's it going to cost? What's it going to cost? We make them wait an hour because we're walking through the house and we're measuring and we're showing them pictures of like, hey, here's what your ductwork looks like. And the whole time they're thinking, what's this going to cost? What's this going to cost? And then we get to the end for proposals. And so their anxiety spikes.
Right.
And they go, oh my gosh, this is way more than I thought. And so then as the sales rep, I'm like, well, which one do you want to buy? And their anxiety is all the way up here. And so you're triggering the defense mechanism, which is, I don't know, I need to think about it. Or I need to go talk to my spouse. Or if it's a first time homeowner, I got to call my dad. If it's a senior citizen, they're like, I got to talk to my kids, but there's this instant defense mechanism that pops up because we waited till the end of giving pricing, their anxiety spikes, and now they push back. And that's where we say, well, let's overcome the objection. But the objection is just their emotional state.
I don't know that we emphasize that enough, right? They're not necessarily objecting even you and your services. They just didn't even know what to expect. And now we're at the end of a long process. And I'll be honest, the first time I ever had a problem with my system and called someone to look at it, I had no idea that process took an hour. Like I was even like, oh my gosh, I planned 10 minutes and holy cow, this is taking way long. So you're right. Yeah, we go through the whole hour and then I'm getting thrown these proposals. I'm like, what in the world is happening to my expenses right now? This was unplanned.
Absolutely. So I think, when we're teaching a sales process, one of the things we say is, hey, you want to talk pricing early. And I think the timing of this is key for a couple different reasons. One is we need a gap But I buy into the idea of price conditioning. We want to let people get that sticker shock out of the way, but we probably need 20 or 30 minutes to get the sticker shock out of the way to where they calm back down emotionally, to then give them actual choices where they make the decision.
Yeah.
So what you have to do, and this is hard because we're like, well, I don't know what the price is going to be. I haven't looked at the equipment yet. I haven't looked at the house. I have no idea. Do they need new ductwork? I don't know. How am I supposed to give them pricing? But I think we want to give, I like the idea of giving multiple options, but you should give multiple options in a budget range.
Mm-hmm.
So I might walk into your house and say, hey, in a house like this, 3 or 4 bedrooms, do you have a bonus room over the garage? Yeah. Here's what we typically see. Some customers are going to spend somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000. And then I don't describe the equipment. I describe the customer. Those customers are going to stay in the house a while. They're interested in energy efficiency. They want to sleep better at night. Sometimes they entertain and have people over. And so there's some other considerations. Maybe there's health considerations as well, where there's some allergens they're trying to control. Or so those systems are great, super energy efficient. You're going to spend 15 to 20 grand. We have other customers that say, hey, we're going to live here for 2 years and sell the house and go. We don't want to spend a lot of money. Those customers might spend, gosh, $9,000 to $12,000. And then you got the middle group, right? And so they're going to be here for a while. Maybe they don't want the $20,000 system. So if I can bracket pricing, get the sticker shock out of the way, then I can ask that customer, which category are you? Are you in that $15,000 to $20,000 range? Are you in the $9,000 to $12,000 range? Are you in the middle? Like, help me help you in terms of a proposal. What kind of proposal do you want?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that approach, because you now are kind of planting the seed that, hey, there is an expense associated with this.
Oh, yeah.
Here's some ranges. I, as a homeowner, am not committed to anything at this point. I'm just really kind of identifying what kind of people group I fit within those ranges.
Right.
And then when we get to what the proposal might be, now I don't have to come in totally unknowledgeable. I can say, like, oh, hey, actually, I am interested in this. Or, I know I said earlier that we might not stay here a long time, but we might. Like,
yeah.
You've given me now some things to work on and have a little bit of leverage, which is kind of an interesting tactic, right? We don't often think about who has leverage in the decision-making process or the sales process. But I like empowering the homeowner in that way. And it just increases trust, right? Like,
absolutely.
Okay, you're not here to hustle me into a system I don't need. You're just really here to solve what I need.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, to your point, you're given some visibility into the process. Here's what we're going to be deciding today. Kind of which end of the spectrum are you on? You get to choose, and you're providing context to that decision. If you just said to a homeowner, "Hey, this air conditioner is 15 and this one's 10. Which one do you want?" Everybody's going to pick the 10 because they don't understand, why would I pick the 15? And even when you get specific on the technical side, well, this compressor is different and the airflow varies and it's got a variable speed fan, and their eyes glaze over. So we've got to do a better job of asking questions. But if they don't know what the question leads to, if I say, hey, do you guys have bad allergies? Sometimes the answer is no, even if they have bad allergies, because what they feel like is I might jack up the price.
Yeah.
But if I say, hey, there's some filter options, they could add anywhere from $500 to $1,500. If you want them, great. If not, fine. You're adding that visibility and that transparency. You're more likely to get an honest answer.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So do you recommend giving out those 3 brackets, and then therefore do you recommend 3 choices? Like, how many choices?
Great question. Well, the 3 brackets, the other thing that's important on the timing, one is you want to bracket pricing with at least 20 to 30 minutes between when you're bracketing pricing and then giving a proposal.
Okay.
The other thing about bracketing pricing is you want to do it before you go look at the equipment.
Yeah.
Because once I look at the equipment, if I sound wishy-washy on price, then the homeowner's like, this guy's just sizing me up and trying to figure out what he can take me for.
Hustle mode.
If I haven't looked at the equipment, I'm like, gosh, I don't know. It could be 15 or 20. That would be typical for this size house. It sounds a little bit more credible that I don't know the exact number because I haven't looked at anything yet.
Right.
So that part's crucial. Then your question was the number of choices. And there's some research out there that shows how many choices. And this is where adding that 4th option, I would say the last 10 years, almost anybody that practices best, better, good, they're adding that 4th option in. here's what happens. If you give somebody one or two choices, they don't really feel in control. And so in order to feel in control, I need more choices. It's my house. I want to make the decision. So how do I get more choices? Well, I go get more bids. So a lot of times if you're giving too few choices or you haven't talked through things with homeowners well enough, that's where they say, hey, you're the first guy we've talked to. We need to go shop around. We're going to get more choices. And so statistically, in that one or two option range, you're going to have a much lower closing ratio. If you're only giving the homeowner one or two options, you're going to have a closing ratio of maybe 20, 25% at best. The other side of that spectrum is if you're giving homeowners 5 or 6 options or more, you also have a very low closing ratio because now it's information overload. And those objections tend to sound like, wow, this is a lot to think about. I got to think about it and get back to you. I need to go talk to some other people. And so it really is that middle ground of 3 to 4 choices. And to the point of, I don't know about people having 2 halves of their brains, but if you think about like telephone numbers, we break them up into 3 and 4 digits.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is easier to process information in 3 or 4s, right? So 3-digit area code, 3-digit prefix, 4 digits at the end.
Yeah. City, state, zip, right?
There you go.
Oh man, wow, I'm going to start seeing everything in 3s now. But I think that's true. And maybe even thinking about the TV example, like, some of the big discount, big box retailers who sell TVs but don't have a big selection, right? Or like maybe they have like the TV up in the front and then a few in the back. We've walked into those stores and just said like, all right, well, they got one that was in the 70-inch range, but now I want to go find some. Let's go look at some other, versus like maybe a more traditional tech retailer. You walk in and you see 7 TVs in the 70-inch range. Now I'm also equally as overwhelmed.
Yes.
And now I'm standing in the store reading every single review just to see, like you said, I need to do more research. So even the TV buying world have seen where that has also backfired. And then that's when you say, all right, narrow it down to that 3 to 4, and now that's a tolerable pool.
And websites work the same way. I mean, those big box retailers are very familiar with how people make buying decisions. And the purpose of that website is not to give you information on TVs. The purpose of that website is to sell you a TV. So one of the things I like is even on the big ones where there's thousands of options on TVs, they're going to have a little button that says, would you like to compare options?
Yeah.
And the most they're going to let you compare is 4. Because if you start comparing 5 or 6, they're going to lose you. So they want you to compare, pick 3 or 4, put them side by side, compare them. That's the best way to get you to actually buy one.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm really kind of stuck mentally on the fact that we group so much in 3s.
Yeah.
Like I'm really kind of fascinated by that. So, all right. So we still like the idea of 3, 2, 4 as our choices. We've talked about how we're going to do a little bit of price conditioning, but then maybe give some time in between actually getting to those choices. So now, how do I put this all together? How do I do it all well and ultimately close more deals?
Yeah. Well, here's, again, just looking at it from the buyer's perspective. Let's say I shopped around online, I talked to some friends, I got some idea, and I said, okay, I don't know what this thing is going to cost me, but it's probably going to cost me somewhere between $13,000 and $17,000.
All right.
As a heating and air professional, you would say, that's a pretty good budget. Like, this is a homeowner with realistic expectations. So now the sales rep shows up and he does best, better, good. So his best is 20. His better is 15, and his good is 11, right? Well, a couple things happened. One is mentally I was prepared to spend 13 to 17. And so in that budget range that I mentally have, you only gave me one option.
Right.
So even if, if I'm your boss and I'm like, hey, did you give the customer 3 or 4 options? The sales rep says, yes, I did. But if we didn't have the budget conversation with the homeowner first, then the homeowner may discount several of our options because they didn't fit into the budget that they had in mind.
Sure.
So that's one problem with best, better, good is that you see big price jumps. So the price between our 17 SEER multi-stage is this, and our 20 SEER variable is this. That could be a $5,000 jump. So the kind of customer that spends 20 grand is not the kind of customer that spends 11.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I see a sales rep's proposal and he has both a $20,000 option and an $11,000 option on that, What I know is that that sales rep has no idea what the customer's budget is.
Yeah.
And so he's just spraying and praying, as we'd say, throwing out options and hoping one sticks.
Yeah, I have gotten those proposals before
Yeah.
in my secret shopping journey, and it's so true. And the funny thing about those proposals to me is, if you're looking at the $20,000 system, and on this proposal it was an $8,000 was the lowest line. So you do your pitch, you sell, you're great, you leave that with the homeowner. I'm a goldfish. 5 seconds later, I don't remember why 20,000 is different than 8,000. All I see is that there's a $12,000 difference. This one's got some numbers and letters next to it. This one has some numbers and letters.
Yeah.
And all of it, and now I got to reiterate this, in my case to my spouse and say, they're good. I liked the guy, and he's looking at me like, why am I spending $12,000 between the two? So I digress, but no consideration of budget.
Yeah. So I think, step one is we got to have that budget conversation first, because we're doing two things there. Is we're mentally preparing the customer. So there's your price conditioning. You're also figuring out how to narrow down your proposals. So if I had a conversation 20 minutes ago with the homeowner and they were like, yeah, I'm probably somewhere between $13,000 and $17,000. I may have even had my financing conversation with the customer ahead of time, where I would say, hey, systems in this range run, $250 a month to say maybe $400 a month, depending on the exact system. So that homeowner's now mentally prepared. Now, when I come back to do my proposal at the end, if my budget range is 13 to 17, I need to have 4 options in the $13,000 to $17,000 budget range, because then all 4 of those count mentally when the homeowner is seriously considering them. So in some cases, you're not even changing the equipment. You may say, hey, here's our 17-SEER multi-stage. Here's it with just the 1-inch filters and a basic thermostat. Here's our 17-SEER multi-stage with a 5-inch filter and a Wi-Fi enabled thermostat. Here's our 17-SEER with, an air cleaner, full 9 yards, and a 3-year maintenance program and a 10-year labor warranty.
Right.
So it's the same piece of equipment, which is, again, back to what cars do. They would say, hey, here's our sedan, here's the base model, here's the platinum, but it's all the same car. Car dealers don't say, well, here's our $12,000 car, here's our $50,000, and then here's one in the middle. Which one do you want? You would go, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's just as ridiculous in the heating and air world.
Yeah, you're once again putting someone between that decision point of want versus afford, and that's not a good place. Which you already said, that's not where we want to be. Yeah, and I love the idea of actually showing that multi-speed system in a varying array of configurations.
Yeah.
But no matter what, you've solved budget, need, and then comfortability concerns, whatever else you've discussed in the call. So
absolutely,
that's a really, really interesting way to think about it. It doesn't necessarily even have to be different equipment. Here's maybe a curveball. What about the homeowner that doesn't have realistic budget expectations?
Yeah.
How about someone who just says, I don't know, my realtor friend told me that these things cost $5,000.
Yeah. And again, I think the best time then to have that conversation is right at the beginning.
Okay.
Where you can say, hey, if you're just replacing the furnace, here's a reasonable price range. If you're doing the furnace and the air conditioner, here's what some reasonable price ranges might be. If you're gonna do the furnace and the air conditioner and you want your utility rebate to kick in, well, that's gonna be this budget range up here.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think you want to have, if that customer has an unrealistic budget, let's break that at the beginning, get over the sticker shock. Now we've got 30 minutes to walk through the house and talk about the ductwork and airflow and how well they sleep and humidity control, whatnot. So we may be able to bring them back around, but I also have had sales calls end at that point where we just go, yeah, you're not going to get a complete system for $5,000.
Right.
So
right.
Should we keep going?
I mean, saying that up front in the beginning kind of removes that hustle element from you, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you wait until the end to say, well, I could do just your furnace, but here's what I could do if I do the whole thing. Now I'm confused. Well, what do I need? What's broken? Like I'm none the wiser to that when I'm speaking to you, the expert. So really important to get that up front in the beginning. Seems like there's a lot of important steps that happen at the beginning of that sales call.
There are, I get phone calls from business owners, or sometimes it's the VP of sales, and they'll say something like this: we've got a great sales team. They do a great job. We just struggle with closing. Can you come in and teach a class on closing? And you can, but the best way to up your closing ratio is to get really, really good at the beginning of the sales call. Because if you start off on the right foot, if you can talk about money, if you can talk about the indoor air quality issues, potential pain points, if you can talk about how the decision is going to get made, and get all of that way out of the way at the beginning of the sales call, then at the end, it's a lot easier to close.
Right. That makes a world of sense to me. As someone who kind of goes through these buying decisions, it makes a ton of sense. What else would you want to leave with someone who's curious about learning this?
Well, our topic today really is kind of about the proposal step. And to your point, it really does come at the end. So if you want to do, if you want that closing ratio to go up, it really is the end result of a thorough process. So we would say, Stephen Covey says in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, begin with the end in mind. So what we're doing here is we're saying, well, what do we want the end to be? Well, I want to know the customer's budget. I've got to line up 4 options within their budget range. I got to help them make a decision. Okay, well, now we can begin with the end in mind. If I know where I'm going, then what sort of sales process do I have to have so that the customer and I are both ready to make a decision at the end?
Yeah.
So it's helpful to just talk about the proposal step, but then you got to build your sales process to get there.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. Well, I don't know, maybe keeping the end in mind here. I mean,
Yeah.
I thought we were just going to crack Ron Burgundy jokes all day, but this was much more insightful than that.
Yeah.
I think you left us with a lot to kind of think about in terms of how we can approach the conversation, maybe with a little bit more strength, and bring in some better ideas to discuss budget in a bracketed way up front, kind of remove that sticker shock. It's very interesting kind of vocabulary to say, like, remove sticker shock, but apply price conditioning. Like,
Yeah.
And maybe just because I'm curious now, when you think of price conditioning, like, how would you define it? And then like the example of it within this discussion.
Well, it really is. I mean, again, if we kind of mapped it out, if we said, okay, here's a customer, when the sales guy walks in the door, when I'm walking in the door, where's their anxiety level? And then if I wait till the end to say, okay, I've done my proposal, let's go over pricing, their anxiety shoots through the roof. So the way I would define price conditioning is in sticker shock is, let's get the anxiety out of the way.
Yeah.
It's going to cost whatever it's going to cost. When do we want to see that spike in anxiety? Well, I want that spike in anxiety as close to the beginning of the sales call as I can, so that by the end, they've had a chance to kind of let the anxiety slow down.
Yeah.
And we've talked about things, I would say the same thing's true about financing, is you don't wait till the end to go, Mary, if you're broke as crap, we could maybe finance this for you. That doesn't come across well, right? So, I mean, people get pre-approved when they buy houses. So they're doing that. When a car dealer, when I show up on the car lot, he's asking me, are you going to finance? Are you going to pay cash? Do you have a trade-in? Like, we're talking about all those things at the beginning so that he can not waste my time or his showing me cars I can't afford, or I can't afford the monthly payment. So the same thing holds true with financing. One of the things I challenged a group of guys a few years ago was to offer financing at the very beginning. Just walk in the door and say, hey, we've got some great financing promos going on. Would you like to go ahead and apply? And everybody's like, well, that's not going to work. I'm like, well, sure, you're right. It's not going to work most of the time. How often do you think it'll work? And we kind of kicked it around. And so if you go on 100 sales calls, and you said to all 100 people, first 5 minutes in, would you like to go ahead and get pre-approved for the financing? And then we can tell you what the monthly payment will be. If 5% of people, 5 people out of 100 said yes, what just happened to your closing ratio? Well, it just went up 5 points, because you've already got them pre-approved. The chance that they're going to buy is going to be 90-something%. Now you know what they're pre-approved for. They know what the monthly payments are going to be. You can find a system that's going to fit that monthly payment 95% of the time.
Right.
So just ask on the front end, you want to get pre-approved. And this is the same concept. Like, we think, well, nobody's going to get pre-approved for financing until they know what the price is going to be. But yet we shop for cars and we get pre-approved. We shop for houses and we get pre-approved. And like, so just ask. And I think the hang-up's us. It's not the homeowner, right? So it's that's the price conditioning and the sticker shock is like, let's take the money shock out of the way at the beginning, let people calm down, then they can make a rational decision.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. I think I'm a financing fan, so I think that's a great strategy. I think mentioning it early is great, and nowadays there's so many easy ways to go about offering it. So why not, right? Like, it's another chance to show off your website. It's another chance to show off, maybe, I don't know, some sort of tool that you're using in front of the homeowner. Maybe it's your iPad, maybe it's not. It's another chance to just keep that, we always say keep that stickiness, right? Like they're talking to you, they're working with you, they're interacting with you. So big fan of that strategy. Well, I'm enlightened, and I'm still thinking in threes, like you would believe. Like I feel like the meme where the numbers and the algorithms are going in front of me. That's me right now.
Well, I think it was interesting. Again, back to that conference a couple of weeks ago, we've got a room full of HVAC contractors, and we're saying, hey, what are your competitors doing? Are they doing best, better, good, value, or some version of that? And if so, can we go beat them?
Right.
And I think by the end, people left with like an idea of like, yeah, if I had a better pricing strategy, that's worth a few percentage points on the closing ratio. It's probably also worth a couple $100 on the average ticket.
Yeah.
And when you extrapolate that out across the year, I mean, that could be a 20-30% growth in sales.
Right.
Just getting better at beating your competitors.
Right. Yeah. And it's not necessarily like discounting and just doing it. Like the pricing strategy is really looking at your area, saying, all right, what is the budget looking like? What equipment fits there? Make those bundles, give that to the sales team, and go rinse, repeat, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Makes a ton of sense. Well, thank you always for just the insights and being able to put it together so eloquently.
Oh, it's fun. And being on camera next to you, we didn't have to, it seemed to work out okay.
I'm going to bring out the sign language. Maybe we'll translate this one. That would be so crazy. Well, we are always excited to kind of get together and talk to each other. Maybe we'll have to do a few more in person. Still accepting emails.
Absolutely.
HVAC_full_blast@tranetechnologies.com. And what else can we leave people with?
It's fun. I think, if you think through overall, if you're doing in-home sales, what is your closing ratio? What is your average ticket? If you got better at the proposal step, that's going to make you more money.
Yeah.
And then there's probably 5 or 6 other steps that each step, if you said, hey, if I got 1% better here, 1% better here, 1% better here, you would see a pretty big jump. Right. And then it stacks. And so I've seen guys go from selling $1 million a year to $1.6 million to $2.5 million. And then the following year they sell $4 million. You go, wow, how does a guy go from selling $1 million a year to $4 million? Well, it's when it all starts to come together.
Yeah.
And so this is one little piece of the pie, but sales, this is what we do. This is what makes it fun. I love it.
Well, my phone's probably ringing, so it's time to go back to making
money.
Awesome.
Right.
Thanks, Steven.
Bye.
I'll see you soon.